All right, there were drastic changes in the way that they're going to be releasing cards and dropping them from Series 5 to Series 4. They may have series drops every month or they may not. They are probably going to hold on to the better cards. But the main thing that we need to know is that going forward, series drops are going to be somewhat unpredictable. And the way that I interpreted their post is that they'll drop cards when they stop selling, but the top sellers are going to stay in Series 5. So there's Big Bads, Series 5 and Series 4. And then also in the future, they're instead of making all cards come out at Series 5 or Big Bads, they're also going to have cards drop into Series 4. So what are the important cards? And I just want to show, and this is in a specific order, but there are the Series 5 cards, and I just had the Series 4 cards on the screen. So I wanted to start with the Big Bads. The Big Bads currently are Galactus, Kang, and Thanos, and then High Evolutionary is coming to the game in next Tuesday, or next week sometime. So everything in this video is in order on what I think is the most important, and I'm looking at whether or not the card is powerful, but I'm also taking into a large consideration is how flexible is the card and how many decks can it be placed in. The Big Bads, we're going to start off with the Big Bads. And in my opinion, the most interesting of the 4 Big Bads right now is High Evolutionary. Now, keep in mind, this is largely unknown. I do not know how important this card is going to be in Marvel Strike Force, but I suspect the card is going to be interesting and good, but I could be completely wrong. So if you want to take a chance and get a Big Bad, and you want to try Evolutionary, it's going to be very interesting. Now, he was nerfed. The stats came out yesterday in the data mine that he's going to be 4/4. What's going to be interesting about him is that he's going to be interacting with these 7 cards. And I imagine that cards like Sunspot and Scorpion will also be important. Largely, the deck is centered around afflicting negative power on your opponents and not spending 1 energy. And that is how this deck works. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be an interesting deck. But in my opinion, the most important Big Bad out of the 4 that we have currently right now is High Evolutionary. Next on the list is Galactus. Now, Galactus is a very polarizing card. Needs cards like Null for it to be effective. And there's a very specific build on Galactus. Now, whether or not Galactus is fun or not, or if you should buy Galactus, is completely up to you. But I just want to point out that this card is 1000% on their radar. And you could buy Galactus, and then they are going to nerf a card around it. Now, this was posted, I believe, yesterday by Glenn, and he was asking they were asking if Galactus being changing. And he's on their radar for a nerf, but they almost made it sound like they didn't know how to nerf Galactus. And so in the same way that they nerfed Rock Slide, specifically to nerf Darkhawk, like they wanted to nerf Darkhawk, but they didn't know how, so they nerfed Rock Slide, because Rock Slide is largely only played in Darkhawk decks. Now, the one card that I see as could be a card that they may target to negatively impact Galactus is going to be a card like Spider-Man or Doc Ock. Now, Doc Ock specifically is largely only played in Galactus decks. If they do decide to pull the trigger and target the Galactus decks and nerf a Galactus deck, I suspect it's going to be a card surrounding Galactus like Doc Ock. And the reason why I think that they're going to do Doc Ock is because Doc Ock strips all of the possible counters that could interfere with Galactus going off. I did a video about Galactus, and I pointed out that there was at least 22 cards that had some way of interfering with Galactus going off. Well, the problem with that idea is that they play Darkhawk the turn before, and it pulls all the counters out of your hand. So maybe that's going to happen. So if you're in the market for a big bag and you want to spend 6,000 collection tokens and Galactus is the one that you're choosing, keep in mind there may be some changes to this card in the immediate future based on the way that they view this card. The next card on the list is Thanos, and I very much like Thanos, and I feel like Thanos is in a weird place. Thanos was at the top of the meta, and they've done things to bring him in alignment. He's still a very powerful card. The problem with Thanos, the way I see it, is the prevalence of Darkhawk. Darkhawk is like the natural enemy of a Thanos deck because there's extra cards inside of a Thanos deck, which gives extra power to Darkhawk. So I don't think that there is a large reason right now to be playing Thanos. There are a couple Thanos decks that are okay. There is a junk build. There is an ongoing build. But largely, I'm not personally playing a lot of Thanos just because of Darkhawk and the prevalence of Darkhawk. And I am not too excited about that. And then lastly, out of the big bads is Kang. Kang has just been a big dud for me. And yesterday in their release, when they talked about cards that they're going to be dropping and the importance of Thanos and Galactus and why they stay at the rate, it was very obvious that they omitted Kang from a sentence, a key sentence in that message on the Discord server. I wouldn't be surprised if Kang gets a modification or is removed as a big bad and just goes into Series 5 and Series 4. I feel like I thought Kang was going to be amazing, and he has just turned out to be a dud, in my opinion, and I would not recommend spending 6,000 tokens on him. Now we're going to go to the rest of the other Series 5 cards that are currently selling for 6,000. And without a doubt, my personal favorite is Jeff, the baby land shark. This card is very powerful and can be used in many decks. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Jeff is one of the best 2-drops in the game, if not second or first best 2-drop in the game. Being able to play Jeff into a location and to be able to place Jeff or move Jeff on the last turn is a very powerful mechanic. Like if we look at the popular Stature Black Bolt decks and we look at the cube rate and the win rate on those decks with and without Jeff, just simply changing out like Jeff for Nightcrawler or Jeff for Cloak, the cube rate goes up from, let's say, 0.3, 0.4 to 0.4 to 0.5. Like it goes up a lot. Like having like a 25 to 30% higher cube rate just by the addition of Jeff. So Jeff, as far as just straight Series 5 cards, is my personal favorite. I did purchase Jeff for 6,000 tokens. Now, the other card that I purchased for 6,000 tokens is Iron Lad. And I do like Iron Lad a lot, and I am currently running Iron Lad in a Stature Black Bolt deck. And sometimes I swap in Doom depending on the featured locations and things like that, and he is very effective. Now, the reason why Iron Lad is good is that he is a 4/6. So for 4 cost, 6 power, he has reasonable stats. So even if you don't get anything great, and sometimes you pull Doom and Doom goes off and you get the bots in each location, he's a good card just because of his stats. I do like Jeff more than Iron Lad, but I definitely see the value of Iron Lad, and he has definitely helped me win games. It is very random, though, what he does, and that often leads to games not making it to the end, meaning you drop Iron Lad. Often when you have Zabu in the field and you drop Iron Lad on turn 3, something happens that is fantastic. One of my favorite things for Iron Lad to target is Jeff, the land shark, and then you can move around that card to wherever you want. Fantastic. But often people retreat before the snap, retreat before it goes to turn 6. Now, the next card is Howard the Duck. I did not buy Howard the Duck. I am interested in playing a deck. Notably, the deck that I'm the most interested in trying with Howard the Duck. Now, I did not buy Howard the Duck. My opinion can be changed on this, but there is a deck that I'm currently watching and wanting to play, and it is a Stature Black Bolt Darkhawk Rockslide deck that runs Doom, runs Iron Lad, runs Jeff, runs Jubilee, and it has Howard the Duck. So having Jubilee and Iron Lad in that type of deck with Howard the Duck seems to be impactful. Is it worth the 6,000 tokens? Well, I don't know. I mean, it feels like a luxury card to me, and I'm not willing to buy it. And also, keep in mind, this deck that I'm talking about, that I'm interested in playing, already has Iron Lad and Jeff. He's just a lower priority. Stegron, I did not purchase. I have definitely lost games to Stegron, and there is value. The way that I view him is that he is a fancier, different version, but a fancier version than Juggernaut. I think he's a flexible card to be played in a lot of decks, and he's definitely won matches for my opponents, and I've definitely lost to this card. I just don't see him being super impactful overall in a place where I would be willing to spend the 6,000 collector tokens. I don't know if I said 5,000 collector tokens earlier, but the Series 5 cards cost 6,000 collector tokens. Maybe I'll consider buying him when he drops to Series 4 and for 3,000 collector tokens. And then last on the list is Snowguard. I actually pulled Snowguard for free out of a collector's reserve, and this card is so situational, borderline useless. The number of locations that Snowguard could affect is so incredibly situational. I don't know, this is not a good card. And if it changes between the two, so you can't even like easily plan around it. I don't even play this card, and I got this card for free. All right, we're gonna go now to the Series 4 cards. It was somewhat controversial yesterday when they did not drop Darkhawk and Null from Series 4 down to Series 3. They said that they are too impactful of cards and they were going to hold on to them. So this is in an order. And again, this is my opinion. I think the most important card in Series 4 right now is Zabu. Not only is he a powerful card that many decks need to be effective, this guy is a very important card. What's interesting is this card was nerfed pretty drastically, and Zabu is still amazing. Like I don't even know how I would play Marvel Snap without Zabu. There's so many decks that Zabu is played in, and card cost reduction, 4 cost costing what's left. This is the engine, the backbone of too many decks to cite. But this guy sees the most amount of play. Now, this was a Battle Pass card, so a lot of people that bought the Battle Pass don't have to worry about it. I think a lot of players already have Zabu. Next on the list is, without a doubt, Darkhawk, rather. Darkhawk needs to be played in conjunction with Rockslide and is typically also played with Korg and or Black Widow. This guy is a stat beast. This card gets used everywhere. Even bounce decks will run Korg and not Rockslide, and because they're able to play Korg multiple times through Beast, Darkhawk gets included. So this is just a staple card, and apparently they're not dropping him. And I think that Darkhawk is a very important. The caveat is you do need Rockslide. Rockslide is important for Darkhawk to do, but I've played Darkhawk so many different places. He has been nerfed. Rockslide's been nerfed. Still a very powerful card. Stature. I know a lot of people say that they don't get it, but the best deck in the game right now is a Black Bolt, Stature, Darkhawk, and Rockslide deck. And then there's some other cards that go with it. But this deck is everywhere, and it is by far the most powerful deck in the game. It also runs Zabu for that matter. Now, the changes to Wave made, do affect Stature. And that was one of the advantages, I think, of the deck is that, there were, when you play against, let's say the old Death Wave or the old, just wave decks in general, the one that's with She-Hulk, they didn't care. Stature didn't care. But having the ability to play Black Bolt on turn 5 and have an 8 power card with a nice effect that doesn't have to worry about Shang-Chi and doesn't have to worry about Enchantress, right? It's very powerful. And then immediately preceding on turn 6, you're able to play Stature for 1 cost alongside something else. I mean, typically on turn 6 on this deck, you've already got Zabu on the board and you're playing Darkhawk for a lot of power, Stature for 7 power, and maybe Jeff somewhere, right? And it's very powerful. The deck has a much higher cube rate and win rate than all other decks. Most of the decks that are viable right now have similar cube weights and win rates, and there's a lot of them. But the Stature, Black Bolt, Darkhawk decks are a notch above. And so if you have the rest of the cards and you want to play this deck, Stature is definitely worth it. Next on the list is Null. If you want to play Galactus, you have to have Null. Now, there is a Venom deck out there that runs Null and it does not run Galactus, but largely Null and Galactus go hand in hand. And so if you're purchasing Null, it's because you want your Galactus deck it's just the best card in a Galactus deck to play on turn 6 because everything is exploded from Galactus and it's an immense amount of power. Next on the list is MODOK. A lot of people already have MODOK because MODOK is a season pass card. There is still some viability to discard decks. They have become more important and more relevant with all the nerfs and the Shuri nerfs and so on have brought the total output of power of competitive decks down to where MODOK is effective. I also feel that Nebula was a good addition to the MODOK deck that I like to play, which is a Storm deck. And typically the MODOK decks like Storm because they're playing either Morbius or Nebula or Dracula into the Storm lane. Then they're exploding everything on turn 5 with MODOK and then having Swarms in your hand and then drawing into Chavez and then the Apocalypse is just ramping up in power. It's a very good deck. I do recommend it, but I don't know if I would buy it. I don't know if I'd buy it. I think I just want to acknowledge the people that bought the Battle Pass and have MODOK, that MODOK is an important card. Same category with Nimrod. I don't know if I would buy this deck. Actually, I think MODOK, the rest of these cards I'm going to talk about, I'm kind of lukewarm towards, and I'm sure that there are situations where they're good. It's just I've played Nimrod and I know that there's a turn 6 Galactus deck that is viable, but Nimrod just kind of feels like a dud to me. Like he's just a variation of Black Panther in a lot of ways, and I think there's other things that Black Panther does that's a little bit better, but I'm not like a super big fan of Nimrod. I think he was a good example of a reasonable Battle Pass card. So but I don't know if I would spend collector tokens on it. Shanna, I've not played this card. I don't think I've ever lost this card. I know that there is some viability around this card, but I'm not super interested in Shanna. I've not played her. I'm not going to speak to it, but I'm not willing to pull the trigger. I'm sitting on a lot of collector reserves. If I thought Shanna was something that I wanted to play and that she was viable, I would open all my collector's reserve. I'm sitting on over 30 of them right now, but it doesn't even excite me at all to do that. Also, Master Mold. There's really nothing wrong with Master Mold and Ronin. I think the problem, and maybe Crystal will make Master Mold more viable, and then there's also Maximus, and that too remains to be seen. I think the issue with Master Mold, and the reason why I'm not a big fan of Master Mold, and I did purchase Master Mold, and I just don't think he's that. I don't think the Master Mold package which is not just Master Mold. I'm talking about the whole package, which includes Ronin, right? At the end of the day, the reality is simple. Devil Dino is just better than Ronin. It's easier to control the number of cards in my hand than the amount of cards in my opponent's hand. And so Master Mold goes with Ronin. And at the end of the day, Devil Dino is just better than Ronin. It's just that simple. So I'm not really sprung on Master Mold. And then Teenage Warhead, Negasonic may become a more important card. She does not see a lot of use today. Any of these cards that require her to be played and then your opponent can react to them is not the best. I more prefer the types of cards that surprise and change the board on turn 6. And just to keep it simple, Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi on turn 6 blows up a lot of things on your opponent's side, and that is good. This does not have the same amount of utility and usefulness to that of Shang-Chi. I don't think that she's a super terrible card, but I got to say, I did purchase her when she came out, and I've largely not used her. All right, well, let me know what you think in the comment section if you agree with my opinions on these cards. Like I said, largely this is my opinion. Also, I just want to point out, I'm super hyped for a lot of the cards that are coming out in the next couple of months. And specifically, I can't wait to try out High Evolution. Let me know what you think in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching. Keep on gaming. Bye for now. Woof.